is, whether he's somehow somebody just for the press, or if he's really in charge, and what his role is. This is quite unusual, that this organizational data is that open in the European Parliament, because you can find out so much. Sometimes in other governments, this is really classified data, who's in charge and who takes which job, this organizational chart. Rules of procedure, the treaties, and so on are very important in the legislative process. To know under which procedure a legislative act is introduced into Parliament. This is very complicated, but it's worth to investigate it, whether it's applied under Article 95 and so on, because these procedural questions decide what you can do, whether you can file amendments, for instance, in the second reading, or what can happen in the second reading. Often national governments, when questioned in national parliaments, don't know the procedures on the European level. They simply don't know. They tell Parliament, well, we will vote in the first reading, but in the second reading we can change it. But when you look at the proposals, the procedural rules, you see that there is no opportunity to do so. It's also interesting, we had a long debate in the European Council because of this difference between A items and B items, which was actually about informal rules. These were not formal rules, and we stressed very much the possibilities according to the written law and interpretation by legal experts. That is, that you can agree on a common position, but you can say, okay, this is not our common position anymore. And Council insisted on, once you reach a common position, you have to adopt it. There's no other way, be it in the fishery councils or anywhere, we have to adopt it. And Poland didn't want to adopt it, and so they delayed the process. But also the delay was very useful because it gave us much more time to create the movement to stop this legislative act, finally stop it. So the rules of procedure are very important. Now, what I just want to mention here are two projects. Just have a look at it if you're interested in. There's currently an EU broadcast directive prepared, which could be interesting for podcasting and things like that. I think the Electronic Frontiers Foundation is very concerned about it on the WIPO level, about broadcasting, and they got, I think, 300,000 euro, I think, or like that, for lobbying in this broadcasting area. I don't know much about broadcasting, but the Commission proposed 13 September, I think, a similar directive. I just had a look at it. It's interesting because at one point it says that as a commercial news service, media service, you may not insult someone or things like that. This is very general. I can look it up. You may not something against religious beliefs and things like that. So we don't have a Fortzensur in Germany. So it's a little bit wacky on the constitutional level, but I don't know how it works. Data retention, you know, this one through. This is a Slashdot article because a comment of our president Peter, which I think is very interesting here. Now this was our press release, and Peter says, ironically, a report by the Commission just 4 years ago on the Echelon surveillance system stated quite clearly that only in a police state is the unrestricted interception of communication permitted by government authorities, and he concluded the EU is now officially a police state by the Commission's own words. So this went through, and this went wrong. Now, these other quotes relate to how to contribute inside, not only inside Parliament, but better before it enters Parliament. And there are consultations, there are very interesting consultations, and I really encourage you, when you represent an initiative, if you represent an NGO or even a company or just you as a person, and have time, draft a paper of 10 pages or like that, contribute to consultations, because show up as a stakeholder who's interested. And there's a page, Your Voice, it's named Your Voice, with a lot of different consultations mentioned. Not all consultations show up on the main page, but on this, in the pages of the specific general directorates, you find more consultations. And here's, for instance, a call for input on the forthcoming review of the EU regulatory framework for electronic communication and services, including review of the recommendations on relevant markets. So it could well be that you're concerned about it. Or there's another very interesting consultation. This is digital libraries of InfoSoc. And this is actually about that the EU somehow wants to reinvent the Project Gutenberg. And they want to spend 30 millions on that, scanning books and projects and like that. And this is a consultation, and interestingly, the paper of the working paper and the communication is almost, say, 90% on your side somehow. When you are in this business of in this interest of say Project Gutenberg or things like that. So I really encourage you to contribute to this consultation. I think it's very important here because the result of this consultation will be that sometime, perhaps in 1 year, perhaps in 2 years, a directive will get proposed. And when you show up as a stakeholder who says, well, I represent the Blinds Union, and it's important that we get interoperability provisions for the blind and things like that, then the likelihood that it will be included before it enters Parliament will be not low. And other groups will show up. I think that all official, those lobbyists which are present in Brussels, like the BSA or CompTIA and so on, all these groups will contribute here and just send 3 pages or 4 pages paper. These papers are often not very good, but of course you show that you have interest in it and you raise certain issues. So this digital libraries consultation, I think, is very, very useful. And actually, this is one presentation, one consultation where you are able to kick the stone somehow and roll it down the other way of the hill. And there are other consultations. Everybody can contribute here. You just have to know that this exists here. A consultation on postal services. This might not be really relevant, but sometimes it's useful to just have a look. Like there were consultations about airports. You know, perhaps there are some relevant questions, like how passenger data shall get tracked or things like that. And then you can contribute with your knowledge and say, oh, these solutions don't work, and be concerned about these interests and care about privacy or whatever. Often the Commission does not know on the one end what the other end is doing. So. And you cannot also you cannot say that the Commission is a kind of uniform body. It's different general directorates, different styles, different people, different way of procedures. Just when you look at the different communication of them, they all have a different style. So it's always useful to contribute when you're invited to contribute. Another tool which of course can be used, I have something else here, which is also interesting, call for input on the forthcoming review, okay, electronic communications, deadline 31 of January, And this one here, Action for Damages, 19th December, adopted a green paper and a commission staff working document on damages, actions for the breach of European Community antitrust rules. So, the public consultation will last at 21st of April. So perhaps you want to comment on antitrust rules, those who are always so concerned about monopolies. Perhaps there's something they want to say about it or contribute here.
I have one question more.
Yeah.
One more thing I'm interested in. So I hear about the words you say that the influence is quite big, the influence of lobbyisting work when you look at the decisions. So I find it a nice idea because it's kind of private, organized democracy. Because you and your organization are not there because any state told you or any government told you to go there. So it's just because, I don't know, like I think you and the guys who are there have a kind of ideology. Yeah, I think of a personal idea to go there. But is the question, is there a danger that somebody who has just the money, for instance, a company, it's quite easy to say, if I was the owner of a big company, to say, okay, I will spend this and this amount to send like 20 of my workers to Brussels to make influence, to make the interest, to make the decision to get nearer to my interests. What do you think? Is there a danger?
Well, of course it happens. Everybody tries to defend its own interests, and also these groups show up in Parliament. But I have to tell you that professional lobbyists are often not very, those traditional lobbyists are often not very efficient in what they are doing. That means you often overestimate their role. They're just there. I think they contribute to such consultations. But you, as an ordinary citizen with almost no resources, and I think a professional lobbyist gets €500 a day or an hour sometimes. So these are real professional people, public relations people. But you, as an ordinary citizen, can just contribute a paper and outperform them. So this is interesting. So you don't have to be afraid really of this. Usually it's a lot of wasted money in this whole process. And well, the software patents debate showed that they wasted millions on lobbyists and influencing parliament. But your concern, I think what's really important is transparency. To talk about what they are doing inside Parliament, to talk about these lobby groups. In Germany, we had this case with Microsoft's Hunzinger group, and finally, this lobby group became the news. And when it became the news, it somehow broke down commercially. So lobbyists also don't like it when you talk about them and what they are doing and what they are acting and monitor them. And so this is exactly what you shall do. You shall talk about lobbyists. Unfortunately, I'm not able to talk about lobbyists in the given time now. I just want to mention three issues. Yeah.
Can I just make a proposal that we meet tomorrow? No? Can you make the microphone?
No, it's too much.
Check. Okay. Regarding the time we have left, perhaps we can meet tomorrow at 11 at the workshop area at the end of the Hack Center or at the last day. I think there are some free slots for meeting for people who are interested in lobbying, not even the European, but the German or regional parliament. That would be perhaps a nice idea to continue the work and the information exchange.
Okay. You can look up the links. I just want to enter one small issue. The Euro Ombudsman. Many people ask us about the European Ombudsman. Generally, you can say in legislative processes the Ombudsman is irrelevant. and it's not really an effective instrument. So when you have a concern about a policy issue, don't go to the Ombudsman. You can file petitions to the European Parliament. You can write a petition